Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Harvard Classics lecture. This is lecture number 90. We will be working with Calderon's Life is a Dream from 1636. Just think about that. Hamlet is published on stage for the first time, we believe, in 1600. Some 36 years later, we'll have maybe the greatest of the Spanish plays. Now, in this volume 26 of the Harvard Classics, we're going to visit with what they call continental dramas. We'll have 6 of them, really 6 of the greatest plays ever written. And it's sad today, Life is a Dream is a classic example of this, how few of these plays are known at all today. My hope, obviously, is to invite you to want to study this play closer. Watch performances of it, obviously, to read it as well. We're going to begin, first of all, with Pedro Calderon de la Vaca. We will reference him as simply Calderon. Born on the 17th of January in 1600, interesting given the year that Hamlet's performed, and dies the 25th of May, 1681. Really one of the most remarkable writers in world literature, certainly the most distinguished of the Baroque writers of what we call this Spanish Golden Age, especially of theater. We think about Cervantes and we think about Calderon as the 2 great Spanish writers. He was, and I like to point this out when I talk about Calderon, he was both a soldier and a priest. So in other words, he had that capacity to have experienced the world from multiple dimensions, and we will for sure see those dimensions in this very text. He wrote, prolific writer, left over 120 plays. Often scholars have pointed out that his plays are characteristically nationalistic, very loyal to king, fanatical to church, and so we'll point out that this play, Life is a Dream, will have all kinds of interesting subtexts as we take a look at it. Now, there's no question, Life is a Dream is a play that we would qualify in 303 as a philosophic play, and much in the same tradition as Tom Stoppart's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead. And by the time we get to the end of our study here, we will be paying attention at 3A to the different kinds of titles that will in many ways compare. No question though, Plato's Republic, especially Book 7 and the cave allegory, the idea of individuals sitting in a cave looking at shadows on a wall, thinking those shadows are real. Of course, we're going to already hear it in the title, Life is a Dream. Now, in broad strokes, this is a play about a father who will imprison his son. And is it out of love? Love of his kingdom? We'll have to get into it. And the son comes of age to discover that he has not been allowed to be the prince that he wishes. Now, we are familiar with the idea of the overprotective father. Go back to our comments on Gautama Buddha, for example. But here we're going to have an interesting idea as to why it is the case that a son has been quarantined for most of his life, been tutored, been educated, but has not been told who in fact he is. And then to discover who in fact he is, this will be a play for sure about identity, no question. How does he respond to that? Now, of course, we'll be paying attention to what we call our big 5. What does this text say about epistemology, what we can know, ontology, who we are, psychology, the study of the individual mind or psyche, sociology, the dynamics of groups, and then finally, theodicy. This will be a great play of the theodicic question. Why is it that bad things happen in this world? And of course, we'll finish with level 2 and level 3. Let's go through a real quick level 1 summary of the text. Act 1, Scene 1. A character shows up on stage, dressed as a man, but very quickly it's clear the audience realizes we have a woman. Now this is Rosura. She has been set down in the mountains of Poland, and Clarion is her little sidekick who's always talking and will have a somewhat tragic end at the end of our play. We don't know why she's upset, but clearly Rosura is very unhappy. Life is suffering. So right away we're going to join the philosophic question of why it is that Rosura is so upset. She, as well as Clarion, stumble into this tower, hear rattle of change, then a human voice, and then for the first time we'll see the real hero of our play, Segismundo. Now, Segismundo is clothed, animal skins, wretched, wretched situation. He is enraged that he has been overheard, right? Especially in his moment of weakness. And Segismundo will threaten to kill Rosura and Clarion. Rosura will beg for mercy. Her voice will enchant him. We think of Miranda in Shakespeare's Tempest, O Brave New World. Immediately, so many titles will come to mind. And this beast, and the idea of bestiality will be strong in this play. This beast, this human who has actually been treated like a beast, he will hear the voice and he can't take his eyes off of her, right? Of course, he doesn't know that she's a woman, but nevertheless, blown away by her, okay? Wretched, as Rosura thought she was, when she sees Segismundo, she realizes, wow, this person is in a seriously bad state. Obviously, she asks, can I help you? The jailer, Collado, come rushing in. And they'll grab her. Of course, it's him, they think, as well as Clarion. Segismundo struggles to try and free himself from the chains so he can save them both from death, right? Because it's punishment for anyone to see him. Rosura and Clarion are blindfolded. Weapons are taken away. Rosura will tell Collado to guard her sword. This will be the first of a bunch of symbols in this play. It's the key to all kinds of mysteries, she says. But she's not sure exactly what those mysteries are. That is to say, life is full of these unknowns, and yet somehow known. I mean, the human experience, right? We're all familiar with this idea. So she will report, she was given the sword by a woman, instructed to go to Poland to get revenge on an injury that was done to her, right? An identified person in Poland, she was told, would recognize the sword and would protect her. And immediately, Collado realizes that the sword, he had given it to Rosura's mother, Violante, after he had seduced the woman and not married her. Violante will give the sword to Rosura. It will signify to Collado that Rosura is his child, his son, so he thinks. Resolving then this conflict between love for his son and duty to his king, Collado decides to take his prisoners to the king and maybe win pardon for his quote-unquote son, right? If the pardon is granted, Collado might then be able to help his son avenge the wrong done to him. But Collado, this is key, does not reveal himself to Rosura, right? Therefore, should his effort fail, his son will die, not knowing that it'll be through the agency of his own father, right? Scene 2 of Act 1. Cousins contending for the throne of Poland, Astolfo with his soldiers, Estrella with her ladies, will confront each other. Rather than battle, Astolfo will propose that they join together in marriage and in love and rule Poland. Estrella is kind of uncomfortable about this declaration of love. Why? Because Astolfo will wear a portrait of another woman around his neck on a chain, and this troubles him. Their exchange, however, is cut short by the entrance of the King of Poland, Basilio, and, of course, the entourage. Now, Basilio is going to explain, give us some backstory as to what exactly is going on here. He's going to give us the history that had been unknown to the court and solve some of the mysteries of the first scene, right? For example, he was very learned in mathematics, and he believed in the horoscope. He looked at the horoscope of his son, says Segismundo, while the child was still in his mother's womb. In it, Basilio saw that Segismundo would overthrow him and become a tyrannical ruler. So, he's going to try and somehow best destiny, right? So he declares that Segismundo died at birth, along with his mother. Then he secretly locks the infant in a tower. He makes Collado the tutor as well as the jailer, and he decrees that death will happen to anyone who enters the tower and discovers the secret, right? However, he says this, I want to give my crown to Astolfo and Estrella. However, I want, he says, to make sure that I was right about my ideas regarding my son. So we're going to play a little bit of a game on Segismundo. Now, the whole play is really built around this idea. We're going to play a game, a head trick, if you will, on poor Segismundo, right? What are we going to do? Well, the father Basilio says it this way. Let's dope him. We're going to bring him out of prison. We're going to dress him up like a prince. And we're going to tell him the true history and the reason for his imprisonment. Right? Basilio, of course, is going to hope that armed with all of this, Sesigmundo will become a good ruler. Right? Now, of course, this is a bit of a contrivance in our plot. And yet it's kind of an interesting idea. Of course, right away at 3A, you can think of all of the stories where someone is a complete nobody and then all of a sudden discovers they're the son of a king or the daughter of a queen and have to do great things, right? I mean, think about all those titles, right? If Sesigmundo proves himself virtuous, he gets to be king. And if not, well, you know, they're going to put him back in the cave. Astolfo and Estrella agree that, you know what, they'll give up their claim to the throne if Sesigmundo takes care and performs as a good man should, right? However, if he's cruel, if he's tyrannical, they're going to drug him again, they're going to return him back to the tower prison, and they're going to tell him that everything that he experienced as the quote-unquote prince was nothing more than a dream. Here goes the title of the play. And after that, then the two cousins, in Astolfo and Estrella, will be the king of Poland. Okay? So everybody withdraws, and Calderon enters now with Rosera and with Clarion. And because Basilio has revealed the story of Sesigmundo, Rosera will not be punished for having seen it. There is still, however, her dishonor to avenge. Calderon returns her sword. She tells him that Astolfo is the enemy that she sees. And of course, he's wearing around his neck the portrait of actually Rosera, right? Calderon is then going to be struck with divided loyalties, not totally sure exactly how to respond because Astolfo is his lord. He tells Rosera that since Astolfo is the Duke of Muscany and Rosera is his subject, Astolfo can't have dishonored him, Rosera, no matter what he did. And Rosera is then compelled to reveal that she's a woman and that the dishonor was in fact rape. That concludes the first act. Now on to the second act, scene 1. Well, we now meet Sesigmundo. He's blown away. He's blown away. I mean, it would be like you going to sleep and then waking up in this huge mansion of 50 rooms with servants everywhere asking you what you want. And all you have to do is say what you want and there it is for you. And you're kind of like pinching yourself to try to figure out, is this real or is this a dream? That's Sesigmundo, right? He shows up at the court, he's dressed like a prince. Calderon tells him who he is, as well as the prophecy about him, hoping that the warning will obviously, correct him in some way. Sesigmundo, however, is enraged. He first of all threatens to kill Calderon. Calderon elects it. Astolfo will come in and he will salute Sesigmundo, who returns his greeting with insults, right? Estrella will enter. Sesigmundo is immediately blown away by her beauty, not unlike seeing Rosera, right? And then he's very rude with her, very forward, very sexual. A servant will point out some of these faults in his behavior, and Sesigmundo will immediately grab the man and throws him off the balcony to his death. So already you can see what Sesigmundo is now like as he becomes now the prince, right? Enter now the father. Basilio will, of course, find out that Sesigmundo has in fact been acting really badly, and he obviously is very sad about all of this. Sesigmundo will respond to reprimands with contempt, and Basilio will leave him. He's angry. He tells him that although he kind of seems to be enjoying a position of power, he ought to take heed. He may only be in fact dreaming. Sesigmundo has no interest in listening to him. Then Rosera shows up, now dressed as a woman, following in Estrella's train, encounters Sesigmundo again, and he demands she surrender to him. So you've got this same sexual tension happening. She tries to leave, he orders the door shut. As Sesigmundo's about to force Rosera to yield to him, Calderon will save her, right? Sesigmundo draws his dagger, and now Calderon will have a tough choice. He'll grab the sword. He'll grab the dagger. They struggle, they fight. Rosera exits, crying for help. Astolfo runs in, comes between Sesigmundo and Calderon. Astolfo demands that Sesigmundo return his dagger to his sheath. Sesigmundo will refuse. So you've got this force kind of thing happening, right? Astolfo draws his sword. Now we have a duel. Enters Dad, right? Basilio comes in. And following, of course, the code of chivalry, they both will sheathe their swords in front of the king. And now, obviously, Father wants an explanation. What is going on? Sesigmundo will boast that he's tried to kill Collado and that he may be moved to kill Basilio himself, his own father, in revenge for having been imprisoned. Now, of course, we cannot help but think about Sophocles' Oedipus Rex in a text like this, right? And then he'll leave the stage. So in other words, he makes these threats, and then he leaves. So the king now has a challenge, a problem, right? He's going to order, my son has to be returned back to the prison, right? Made to believe that everything that has occurred was only a dream. He's now alone. He's made his proclamation, and he will leave, okay? Estrella now and Astolfo are alone. And Astolfo will actually declare his love for Estrella, but she will in fact say, oh no you don't, not so fast, right? How can you speak of love to me when you have another woman's picture around your neck? Estrella then will catch sight of Rosura, who has entered during the conversation. Now, of course, unaware that Astolfo's portrait is of Rosura, she asks Rosura to take it from Astolfo when he returns because it would embarrass Estrella to do it ask for it herself. When Astolfo returns with the portrait expecting to find Estrella, you have, of course, the meeting between Rosura and Astolfo. She says she's not Rosura, but Astra, Estella's serving woman. He insists that in fact she is Rosura. Denying it again, she explains that Estrella has asked her to take the portrait from him. He refuses to give it. She attempts to seize it. They struggle. Estrella will enter, astonished obviously at seeing the two of them fighting. Rosura will explain that that as she waited for Astolfo, she remembered that she had a picture of herself and took it out to look at it. Astolfo, upon seeing her, took the picture from her. Estrella will see the picture of Rosura, gives it to her, and believes the story. In other words, again, more uncertainty about the truth. Rosura will leave. Estrella demands the other portrait from Astolfo, and there being no other portrait, he has none to give and can't admit that the portrait of Rosura was the one in his possession, for that would be admitting that in fact he dishonored her, right? Disgusted by him, Estrella will leave. She wants neither the portrait nor him. She will, run away. He obviously begging, to let him explain. Act 2, Scene 2. We're back at Sesigmundo. He's drugged, returned to prison, accompanied by Collado. Obviously, his teacher, his jailer. And as well by Clarion, who's in prison because he talks too much. Clarion originally showing up at the beginning of the play. Sesigmundo wakes up, shocked. Here I am back in prison again. We had this little joke, that little Zen koan that we tell in 303, right? I dreamed I was a butterfly, and then I woke up and wondered, am I a butterfly dreaming I'm a human? We got the same game going on here, where Sesigmundo will wake up, and he's like, whoa, was everything I just experienced real, or was it just a dream? Collado will explain to him, you were dreaming, but Sesigmundo's having trouble, obviously, believing that. Since his experience at court seems so real, perhaps he might have been awake then and dreaming now, he thinks. Collado will question him about life at court. Sesigmundo recalls his glories, but also his violent behavior, including, of course, the attempts to kill Collado himself, right? Collado will remind Sesigmundo he's cared for him. He's been his tutor and his teacher and has advised him. And that, even in dreams, one ought to be good. This is one of the hinge points of the play, right? Sesigmundo is left alone. He realizes that what Collado has said is true. He promises himself to restrain his fierceness, his anger, his rage, his fury. Because since he can never be sure when he's dreaming and when he's not, perhaps everything is a dream and life is an illusion in which we're not what we are, but only what we dream we are. That ends Act 2. Act 3, Scene 1. Clarion's thoughts about life, what it's like in prison, is interrupted by a mob, shouting that they've come to free Sesigmundo. They don't want to be ruled by Astolfo because he's a foreigner. Then they mistake Calderon for Segismundo. And so we've got almost like comedy in Shakespeare, where we have misidentification of an individual, which will lead then to everyone thinking that Calderon needs to be the new king. However, Segismundo enters, he will declare himself, obviously, who he is, and he finds that he's at the head of a force that will fight to make him king. So here we go again, right? Only now, Segismundo has an army, and so Segismundo can actually overthrow his father and take over the throne of Poland. However, he's reluctant to believe that what is happening is real, right? Remembering that the last time he was, kind of given princely status, it was just a dream. He maintains that the people freeing him are only shadows. And it's, of course, at this point that those of us who know our Plato's Republic, Book 7, and the cave allegory, we recognize that Calderon is playing directly a Platonic kind of idea. However, the mob will continue to persist that Segismundo needs to be the king, right? A soldier will argue that dreams are omens and that Segismundo's earlier dream was an omen of the reality that actually now appears to him. Segismundo will accept the role they impose on him, even if it's illusory, and he's prepared to be disillusioned, right? That Segismundo's realization that everything is illusory has tempered his spirit, however, is clear to Calderon as he comes in. He expects to be murdered and throws himself at Segismundo's feet, ready to die. However, Segismundo now begins to act like a true king. He asks him, says, get up. He acknowledges that Calderon's been his teacher. He needs Calderon's guidance, assistance, and that even if he is dreaming, he wishes to do good deeds. Calderon will explain that he can't side with him against Basilio's father, out of loyalty. Segismundo will get really